Hello and welcome everyone in the next part of our series. Today we're going to talk about portfolio and project management and particularly focus on how can you address this area in Jira. Let's wait a couple more minutes for everybody to join. I'm joining you from Warsaw today, where it's rainy and humid and hot. I wonder where are you from today? Where do you join us today from, and what's the weather like there where you are? If you can share this on chat, we'll have a chance to test if the chat is working, because we will use that chat for questions and answers later on. So that's important. Nice. Sunny in Wrocław. Don't be shy. Kasia is joining us from Kraków. Oh, lovely. Zagreb, Lanaona, Spain. Oslo is still quite warm, 19 degrees, not too bad. The heat wave that I think we all across Europe experienced last like 2 weeks was quite enormous. Now it's getting more livable. Berlin is sunny too. Juliette is joining us from France. yeah, it was kind of hot everywhere. Jonas is joining us from Zurich. Lovely. We have a good pan-European representation. And Laima from Vilnius. Gdańsk is cloudy, but that's and probably windy too, which would not be unusual for this city. All right, lovely. We have a good representation. Let's then start and move on. Today, my name is Michał Kłakowski. I lead the service strategy and sales department here at Divinity. And with me is Bogdan Gurka. Bogdan, stage is yours.
Hi, I waited patiently with my introduction, so I didn't do this chit chat, but that's my part now. I'm Bogdan Gorka. I work for Divinity as senior Atlassian consultant in the PPM and PMO team. In Atlassian, I have worked since 2018. Before that, I worked many years in IT project management as project manager and SAP PMO manager. And in this webinar, I will share my experience about implementing PPM solutions for our clients. Over to you.
Buckle up, because there's tons of experience to share. At Divinity, generally, we are specializing in building solutions on top of Atlassian platform. We're a platinum partner there with 50 cloud migrations, ton of experts on board, and actually, I just realized almost 20 years of experience in this space. And today we're going to share the experience around project management specifically. And please stay with us to the end of the webinar, because as we usually do, following our custom, there's a surprise waiting there for you. My favorite part of the webinar. But right now, we're going to jump straight into the content, and we'll talk about the typical challenges that you see in project and portfolio management. And we will be talking then about addressing that with our standardized approach and accelerator that we use, which is called PMO1. And we'll walk you through the whole process from the strategy to the delivery, applying those standardized Jira workflows, and then doing the thing that everybody is anticipating the most: proper forecasting and reporting based on all the information you put in. And as usually, the quality of input determines the quality of output. So that is the reason why everybody is doing the PPM for visibility. We'll talk about a couple practical examples of PMO1 implementations, and eventually we'll move into the Q&A session. Feel free to ask questions throughout the whole webinar on chat. We will have time to address them in the end. Addressing questions that already happened in chat. Yes, you are all on mute, so we can't hear you, which is why typing the questions in the chat is the best way to ask them. What you're going to see now is a pre-recorded part to avoid technical problems, but we're all at all time here with you, and we'll be addressing the questions by the end of the session.
All right. To begin with, let's have a look at common and typical challenges that often influence projects and portfolio management. In my opinion, the most important challenge is faced when strategy and projects are disconnected. Projects should be the main tool to execute company strategy. However, when there is a disconnection between strategy and projects, this will lead to several problems. The first problem is that there is no connection to strategic plan. When a company has agreed its strategy, then delivering project outcomes should be one of the ways to achieve these strategic goals. But when project goals do not correspond with strategic goals, I mean, if they are not somehow linked with each other, then we will not be able to track the strategic plan execution. The second problem is when investment in projects is like a black box. We should not allow this situation that once the project gets a budget, then there are no formal reviews or decision gates to supervise the project. The management should have continuous visibility on demand in order to control budgets, track project outcomes, or stop projects if necessary. Another problem is when prioritization becomes politics. This one is pretty important. Without a formal project intake procedure and scoring mechanism, the most influential managers, so called the loudest in the room, will want to launch their local departmental projects that may not necessarily support the company's overall strategy. The last problem that I would like to mention is that project metrics are in the wrong language. What is the wrong language then? Sprints, story points, team velocity, or releases are more operational and do not provide data that can be used for strategic planning and reporting. Reports and dashboards for the leadership should present the data in their business language that decision makers will understand. For example, due dates, expected outcomes, and benefits.
All of this sounds quite serious. Which of those do you think, in your experience, is the most severe for the organizations you work with?
I think that agreeing on the intake, these sometimes called innovation management process, and then scoring mechanism is, in my opinion, the most important, but also the most difficult to introduce. This requires reaching a compromise, some kind of measures that everyone will agree to. Otherwise, project approval becomes a game of political influence. There will be too many projects happening at the same time, and as a result, this game causes overwork and chaos. All right, now let's have a look at other challenges that may impact your project portfolio. So, what happens when your delivery processes are inconsistent? The lack of company wide project management standards causes that every team works using its own ways of working. And this can be a nightmare. When teams operate in their silos, a status like in progress or done may mean different things to different people. And that breaks transparency as well as company wide portfolio reporting. Another point is insufficient project governance. In this case, you may face difficulties, particularly in decision making and resource management. It really must be clear for decision makers what decisions are needed, from whom, and by when. This ensures that all in progress projects undergo formal reviews where decisions are made and recorded. And in resource management, without a portfolio level view of who is assigned where, teams and project sponsors will constantly fight their resource wars, competing for the same people. Let's move to the second problem, which is project forecasting. Reliable project forecasting is the result of disciplined schedule practices. But too often, effort estimates are disconnected from reality because the delivery teams are not involved in estimating. When delivery dates are promised without looking at available capacity, the risk of missing deadlines will be high. Also, when the risk of delays is not monitored based on project execution tracking, then falling behind schedule will simply be announced during status meeting when it is too late to do anything about it. A major cause of delays can also be hidden in dependencies between projects, where one team is stuck waiting for another team's project results. And lastly, manual reporting. It's the last PPM problem I would like to mention today. Our experience shows that PPM reporting, even if it exists, is often based on biased data and is often manually prepared in spreadsheets and presentations. Without the PPM governance elements that I mentioned, these reports will be assembled manually from scattered data from meetings, emails, even opinions said in the kitchen and one-on-one conversations. Another aspect is that manual reports are not based on fresh data. Because manual reports take so long to prepare, the data is already old by the time it reaches the leadership team. All right, so let's move on. I would like to summarize this a little bit and give you a glimpse of why you should uh, care for portfolio visibility. Every single month that your organization operates without clear portfolio visibility comes with a potentially high cost because these three major problems appear. First, the wrong projects are funded at the expense of the right ones. Companies burn valuable budgets on low value initiatives, leaving the most important strategic goals underfunded. Second, budgets are wasted on projects that will never deliver what they had promised. So without clear tracking, you don't know about that. The projects are struggling and stay hidden under the radar. They continue to consume money after a month after month, but without bringing any real value or business benefits. And finally, your competitors with better PPM can probably move faster. Competitors who use clear processes and live data for reporting, for example, can instantly see their strategy execution progress. Because they have better insights, they make quicker and better decisions and win the market earlier. So we can move on. So why PPM is important for your strategy execution? When you have firmly decided what to do, and that is critical to decide what to do and what not to do in your strategic plan, you will need to coordinate the efforts in your organization to deliver this plan. And Walt Disney inspired us here in this quote that your job as leader is to coordinate the talents of your employees and point everyone towards the same specific goal. As the picture pretty well illustrates, if leadership doesn't clearly communicate and control the direction in which the company is going, teams will naturally start climbing multiple different mountains at the same time. This is exactly how organizations end up with too many active projects, too much internal politics, and teams fighting over the same resources and budgets. Uh, Okay, so this completes our first module of this webinar, and now it's the time to show you how we can help you address these challenges that I've just discussed by using PMO1 for Jira, which can become your portfolio governance and visibility foundation and accelerator. So, what is PMO for Jira? As a result of almost 10 years of working together with our clients, we have created a solution called like this PMO One for Jira. It is aimed at PMO teams that are responsible for project and portfolio management in their organization. So, what's so special about it? We believe that instead of spending months building a system from scratch and having long discussions about requirements, you can use the pre-configured Jira Foundation solution and build up on it. It's not an app that you can simply download from Atlassian Marketplace. It is a custom-built configuration for Jira together with our consulting services to help you transform your current ways of working. What you get in PMO1 is the ready-to-use Jira configuration. Everything you need to start your PPM in Jira is completely configured and ready to use. What you also get are best practice processes such as projects intake, prioritization mechanism, stage gates, and high-level portfolio and program management. These are supplemented by roles and governance, which means that roles and decision making is built directly into the project lifecycle. And what's also important, the configuration is ready for evolutionary adaptation. So you can start exactly where you are today. You don't have to worry about your project and portfolio maturity because the foundational layer can be flexibly adapted to your current maturity level. In short, PMO1 gives you a solid professional PPM foundation inside Jira on day one. It is flexible and fully adaptable with best practice processes designed specifically for your PPM context. But it's not all. Let's dive a little bit deeper into what's inside the PMO1 for Jira configuration. So, what you get initially is the base configuration. This means that there will be all basic technical elements and configuration objects created, which Jira Cloud needs in order to be prepared for the PPM processes configuration. And then once it is done, on this technical foundation, we configure process layers. Firstly, the most important project management process. This process is required for every single project in your portfolio, and the configuration contains the main hierarchy of objects. You will see that just now, together with required fields, workflows, conditions, and validators. It also contains all necessary automations, scripts, and structure views. On the same level comes project coordination process to help you with internal project coordination with delivery teams. And then on this foundational layer, we built two other process layers to enable grouping of projects into programs and portfolios. These are project portfolio management process and program management process. All of that, what I've just listed, is protected by a specifically designed permissions management model so that not everybody sees all the portfolio sensitive data. And then once we have that complete configuration in place, we start the implementation project, which I will discuss in more details later. All right, so since we know now what's inside PMO1 and we have reviewed briefly the challenges, let's have a closer look at how how the solution addresses the challenges we have discussed earlier. We start with connecting strategy with delivery work, which is, in my opinion, the most important. So PMO1 has been built for the purpose of visualization of data. In Jira, you can link your what, meaning project work, with a why, meaning why this work is needed, your strategy. With PMO1, every single piece of work, and it can be epic, story, task, can be traced back to the strategic or operational justification why it exists. Also, you get the project's grouping mechanism, which you can use to visualize your program so that anything financed from your budgets is on the radar. So let's have a look at the concept. The traceability from strategy to delivery is achieved by a hierarchy of linked work items. We use this hierarchy of specific and custom built Jira work items that are linked with delivery objects, for example, epics. In this way, you maintain the traceability from the highest and most abstract management levels to the lowest team and delivery oriented levels. On this screenshot, coming from the app called Structure PPM, you can see an example of a hierarchy. You can see how project tasks are linked to strategic goals coming from the strategic plan. In this way, every piece of work in delivery teams can be tracked back to the strategic goal that it is supposed to support. Even a single user story or a subtask can be tracked back to the strategic goal. And on this screenshot, you can see an example of hierarchy and scheduling. In the Gantt chart section of the structure PPM here on the right-hand side, you can see the graphical representation of dates that are set for specific work items in the hierarchy. The dates that are set on the lower levels of the hierarchy will roll up to the higher levels. Another concept is about portfolios and programs. So programs are registered and listed in portfolios, but can additionally be grouped into various types of programs. With this capability, even if the amount of projects is high, you will still be able to select these projects which should be managed or discussed together. So on this screenshot, you can see another example of hierarchy where several projects are grouped into programs. So this is the sort of reality of the concept I've just explained. And these programs may have common one business goal, and therefore they should be discussed together. So you can use such functionality during, for example, your program management meetings. All right. So next aspect is about governance. So let's have a look at building project governance into Jira workflows. This is what PMO offers as standardization. And this standardization is offered for two groups of project and portfolio management stakeholders, those who do the work and those who make decisions. For those doing the work, company-wide workflow standards embedded in Jira are consistent across all delivery teams. So if you can recall, we won't have these silos. We won't have these local ways of working. And these workflows will use unified shared definitions of statuses, which will mean the same thing in all projects, in all teams. And intake management and prioritization enablement is integrated with configured workflows. You will see a little bit more about it just now. And for decision makers, our second group of stakeholders, decision gates are built into the project lifecycle, and these are reflected in workflows. So any procedures and KPIs that your PMO is using during stage gate meetings will help when you need to identify or properly close failed projects before they drain portfolio budgets. So there will be no these so-called zombie projects present, because they will be tracked and discovered during such gate meetings. Here is just a concept of standardized stage gate meeting. So in PMO, we have embedded a standardized project lifecycle that is synchronized with decision gates, and these are called sometimes stage gates. So this needs to find its place in PPM governance procedures, but Jira can help in planning and tracking these decisions. So for the stage gate process to work, each project should present specific project results submitted for review so the decision makers know what they are supposed to do. And how the workflows help here. Another aspect is that aligning Jira workflows with an agreed project lifecycle is one of these critical elements of PMO1. Status definitions are the same for every team in every project. I've just mentioned that. And on the screen, you see an example of a standardized workflow for issue type project. And stage gates are placed between these phases, and each phase contains several statuses. So you have sort of three elements: people who are supposed to make decisions, they know at what moments of time they should do these decisions, and people doing the work know how this work flows from left to right. And here is an example that how you can use a Kanban board in Jira to manage agenda of stage gate reviews directly in Jira. So thanks to the standard workflow which I just showed you, you know which statuses correspond with which gate, and answers to predefined questions which you show in an example of a methodology, and formal decisions can be recorded during the meeting in an appropriate work item. So there will be no need to prepare separate meeting minutes because action points will already be recorded in specific projects. Okay, now let's move on to the next challenge, the one that is, I think, the most difficult, how to make delivery forecasting more realistic. So PMO1 for Jira can positively influence the quality of project forecasting. However, to make this forecasting data realistic, we again need specific processes to be introduced by the PMO. So we need the PMO policies and procedures work hand in hand with PMO1 solutions. So there are a couple of aspects that are worth mentioning in order to make this project forecasting more realistic. When work packages are linked to estimated team epics, and these estimations were done by those understanding project scope, then our forecasting will be much more realistic and accurate. When planning team members' capacity, we can do it at least on the team level using so-called allocations to get more realistic numbers of their availability. And you will see an example of that just now. And linking between work packages and epics allows us this tracking actuals from team epics as well, monitor cross-project dependencies. So that is again another tool to detect potential delays. So in case one deliverable or team epic slips its due date, we can get a warning and analyze how it will influence other dependencies. This slide, I struggle a little bit with this slide because it's really sort of educational, but I thought that a piece of such an educational material should be interesting for you because you came to the webinar also not to watch the screenshots and solutions, but also to learn something. So this slide explains that forecasting in the context of PPM, and this forecasting, this sort of approach which we foster, is done on three levels: strategic, tactical, and operational. And on the top, on the strategic level, you may only see how many projects are being run in parallel, per department, per system, per product to be upgraded. And this visibility may help you in deciding if the area can be affected by another project. This is a simple visibility to answer the question, can we run another project in this specific area? This already gives you some indication. On the tactical level, the next one in the middle, when you analyze team capacity, you can roll up estimations from all projects that have been started and from these which are planned but still in pipeline. And this can help you in more detail in deciding if you can afford initiating another project with specific teams involvement. So here is about, can I involve specific team? Let's see how much these teams are already occupied. The data that feed into these two upper levels come from an operational level, which is the third one, where work packages with linked team epics store planned and actual efforts. So as mentioned a few times already, this is a mechanism. And in order for this mechanism to work, we need a solid foundation based on policies and procedures that project teams follow and capture their data in Jira. It's really easy to guess that if there is no data in Jira, Jira will not show you anything. So however, bear in mind that the more detailed capacity planning you want, the more effort it will require to prepare and maintain. So it is easy to desire, yes, I want to have a capacity planning on a single person level, but the effort to do it often exceeds the benefits that we receive. Uh, Okay, so here another concept we often get questions, how is this possible to forecast team capacity when project scope is not yet defined? So one way to achieve this is to allocate high-level effort estimations on the team level. That's like a trick. And summarize efforts from not yet decomposed work packages and even project goals. And this really works in practice. Uh, let's have a look at this example. On this screenshot, you can see an example of resource management on the team level. So in the resource section, it is selected to display team level allocations. It is also possible to display assignee level allocations if you have them. And although it will not be very accurate at a certain moment of time, it will, however, give the information about potential over allocations. So here you can see them here in the bottom section in red. You can display it in percentage, you can display it in work hours. And this will show you that certain projects should not be started, uh, or they should be rather rescheduled or moved forward. So this helps you in prioritizing projects. So as you can see, there's no like politics, and it doesn't matter who shouts the loudest, because the numbers will show you that these projects should not happen at this specific of time. So this will reduce the friction caused by the internal politics. Again, the key for this approach is a procedure of forecasting efforts on the team.
Yeah, it seems that preparing those reports is a time-consuming action today. How do we help speed this up?
Well, the thing is that these screenshots which I'm showing here, or I was showing also previously, or let me scroll back like here. So here you can see here is the hierarchy. There are different elements linked together. This is an element, or this is the thing that you do when you are setting up the project together. And this, what you see here, are so-called operational reports. Operational reports are used for those who actually manage portfolios and manage projects. So their job actually is to collect these data, like here, to help them make decisions. But the actual reports will be discussed in the next section about replacing manual reports with sort of automatic reports. So I'll address that just now in this report. Okay, so um, let's review how you can replace manual reports with automatically published reports. Visualizing the data. You saw these examples of visualizing data just now when you asked this question. And again, for decision makers and delivery teams, these requirements for visualizing the data can be different, are often different, but nonetheless, it is the overarching goal of any PPM solution. So with PMO1 supported by your PMO policies and procedures, the tool is fed with data that comes from tracking the real work happening on the team level. But before tracking it's possible, you need to set up the project. You need to create these objects that are needed to decompose, for example, project scope. And once every team follows the PMO procedures and reflect their status of work in Jira, then you as decision maker will be able to see their work tracking in real time in the form of such dashboards or reports. So there will be no need to produce any management board reports manually anymore, because you will use boards and structures directly in Jira, or you can also embed them in Confluence pages. So I'll show you now a couple of examples in different tools, because it depends what reporting tool you already are using. And if you already are using any reporting tool, we can integrate it with PMO1. So what are these tools to visualize your data? The first example is a marketplace app called Custom Charts from Tempo. This tool is very flexible, moderately powerful, but easy to use and easy to learn. It had attractive colors, is really attractive for users, and what I always say, it's really easy to learn. Contrary to the next one, also well known and widely used, it's called EasyBI. But EasyBI, although it's much more diverse and robust, and it really is a specialist BI tool, but due to its power and capabilities, it's also more difficult to learn than the previous tool. The next tool that I could recommend is Dashboard Hub Pro. This tool is less popular in the Atlassian ecosystem, but has diverse capabilities and gradually gains more and more popularity, especially after the last upgrade. And the last one is also quite popular with clients that we work with. That's why I wanted to mention about it. This one comes from Microsoft. It's Power BI. So in order to use it, you need an integration between Power BI and Jira. So you need a way to send data from Jira to this tool. But it is possible sort of out of the box via one of available Power BI connectors from Atlassian Marketplace.
This all looks super interesting, especially the capability to project the PPM onto the existing BI solution in the organization to gain visibility. I wonder if we can talk about some specific implementations where we achieved specific results. What do you think?
Yes, of course. I have prepared three case studies, which I'm going to show you just now. And I decided that to give you a kind of oversight, I selected three different sizes. Of course, we can say that every company is different, but at least we can associate ourselves with the size of the company, and we'll see how we compare. So we begin with a case study from a small electronics design company, and the challenge was pretty common, let's say. They had a challenge with scatter work, which resulted in the lack of transparency across involved teams. So they struggled with predictability and prioritization, which resulted in most critical people to be overworked. So what was needed was a full picture of the project portfolio, who does what and why, so that they could be better at prioritizing work. As a result of the project, they received a customized portfolio solution, enabling this company an end-to-end management and tracking of development projects. In the medium size company, a retail chain company, was what they struggled with was diverse approaches to managing projects in their numerous teams. So this is what I mentioned about silos, and everyone has their own ways of working. So this resulted in a challenge that across over a considerable portfolio of projects with 200 projects in it, leadership had no transparent view of where time and effort were being invested. So it was also unclear how delivery was progressing or what benefits should be expected from projects at their completion. So what they needed was one consistent approach to reporting and alignment of delivery processes to produce comparable data. As a result, this company received a methodology for managing tasks and processing all their project commitments in Jira. So there was no option to do something in their local Excels. So with an operational reporting layer for the PMO team and the board, the project delivered what was expected. The last reference implementation is large financial services group. The challenge was caused by the fact that several subsidiaries and reorganization caused the need for a full-scale project and portfolio management. So there was so much going on and so many projects were being initiated that the company very quickly lost the overview, what are we working with. So what was needed was a standard for project management, which will foster transparency in cross-team collaboration in several geographies. The standard was based on a concept of clear communication and responsible commitment of every team member. So as you could see or guess, the real challenge was to support the organizational change. So every team member works the same. So in course of the project, a commitment methodology was developed and adopted at the level at processes level, tooling, supporting vertical and cross-team communication. So in this way, they succeeded to gain this transparency. And my last part of this webinar is to show you briefly how we work with our clients when implementing PMO1. What we do during the PMO implementation is not to introduce a revolution to your company, because we know already that it will not work. We would rather give you enough time to adopt new practices in an iterative delivery approach. Together with your team, we deliver tangible results in 6 to 8 weeks increments, and that includes supporting your team in managing their organizational adaptation. So as a matter of fact, introducing PMO1 is not much or not so much about implementing the technology, but a lot more about assisting project team members to get accustomed with new processes with Jira. So the scaling is rather the challenge here. Changing habit takes time, and therefore our iterative approach is focused on working with the client during the transition from current to the new ways of working. And every iteration consists of 5 steps, which we repeat in every subsequent iteration. So as you can see, this is a phased life cycle of one iteration. In every phase, we do something and deliver specific results. So in initiation, for example, we kick off the iteration, we collect what is needed. In discovery, we discover with key stakeholders and discuss their delivery model. Then in realization, we take what we've learned and we adapt either the solution or your practices. In phase 4 implementation, we implement what we have designed, and in support, we initiate the support. That was like a very quick, brief overview of the whole iteration. And that really helps that actually you decide how much scope and how much change are you able to really adopt during one iteration. And of course, there can be several iterations. So maybe you have noticed that this duration during these projects differ. So in small projects, in small company, the duration is shorter, but in large organizations, the duration of adaptation of this approach is, of course, longer.
Here,
Time for the bonus. Over.
That's it. My favorite part of the show. As you can see, what we have been talking about is far more than technology, which by the way, likely exists in your organizations already. It's a specific methodology of implementing the project and a specific accelerator to get you there as soon as possible. And this accelerator consists of configuration and enablement and process setup that you need in order to effectively work with your projects. So what I'd like to propose you as part of the bonus, next slide please, is a free PPM consultation where we engage with you for a 30-minute conversation, mapping out your needs and seeing how in a prescriptive way we can help you visualize, measure, and manage in consequence your projects better. If you are interested, please just reply to the email that you will receive as part of the follow-up after this.
Okay, so we're back. All right.
Well, questions and answers. That's the part which we many of you anticipated. We've seen the comments that the pre-recorded content is a little bit dull on your end. We'll definitely take that into account while preparing our next sessions. Rest assured that it's real us here talking to you, not AI avatars or anything. Let me go through the questions and let me try to address them one by one. The first one comes from Tom, who asks, I'm wondering if you have to use the company managed projects with this PMO, or can it work with a team managed ones too? Let me very quickly address that and then pass it over to you, Bogdan.
Mhm.
There's obvious payload with the fact that you are doing this at the company level, where you're addressing the actual strategic decisions of the whole company, which has much bigger impact on actually how the projects get managed versus doing that on a team level. But can it technically be applied at the team level projects? Bogdan, what do you think?
Generally, my approach and of my colleagues is to avoid team managed projects. In some instances, we turn it off completely because these projects are like separate islands. And of course, you can collect data there, you can display them, and you can work in your team. But then this team becomes an island. It's much better to use company projects or company managed projects, because then you can share, link, and generally better organize the data in this type of project. So the short answer is we avoid this type of projects configuration.
All right. The next question is, can you show the example how it works? What are the reports and insights? How it is visible in Jira? How can we track projects on portfolio level? I'd say we specifically avoided a demo session during this show because of the timing constraints, but we can definitely go deeper on a meeting with you. So feel free to reach out and we'll take you through the details on a one-to-one session.
Yes, I can add to that. Technically, I could show you our demo instance. I could walk through with you a couple of test scenarios. But that's the thing, that if we have 30, 40, 50 people on the call, some things will be interested for ones and other things won't be interested for the other ones. And I had a choice. Is it better to put much more content and then work about details or talk about details in individual sessions, or do otherwise? Because I could potentially address 1, 2, 3 big points and show you how it works in the system, but then we would lose the whole context. What are the challenges? What are the
That's
answers? And that's it. So
that's fair, Bogdan. I think we'll take that in the follow-up sessions with the participants if need be.
Mhm.
The next one is, and that's interesting. Can you further explain if we need any plugins, tools to Jira to enable that portfolio view? Do we use external plugins to make PMO live?
Yes, so that actually I can answer with this answer to this question and to the question about, is it based on structure or tempo, or is tempo and structure another name for PMO1? So yes, we have to visualize data, as the title suggests. It's managing project portfolio is about processes which generate data, and then the data needs to be visualized. So we visualize data on an operational level with structure. And yes, it is a very good but not so inexpensive plugin. So if you have a large instance, then the plugin will be expensive. And for dashboards, we use the selection of plugins I showed you. So you can choose Tempo custom charts, you can choose Easy BI, or you can choose to integrate with Power BI, for example. So generally, yes, the concept, the configuration is pure Jira, but visualization and like extension of visualizing data is based on plugins.
And still, there is no equality sign in between the two, because what we are talking about here is not just Jira plus plugins. It is Jira plus plugins plus the process of discovering those projects and making sure that we get visibility and alignment across the board. It's a consultative project supported by Accelerator, not just a technology shuffle in. So the underlying plugins is just a part of a bigger picture that you need in order to make PMO effective and successful in the organization level. There was a question somebody asked me on LinkedIn when we were talking about this event. What is the gap in between implementing PMO and making PMO successful? How do you make sure that those people who are managing their projects internally in Excel actually come on board and start working with us? And that's a big difference. I responded to that question back then that usage and successful usage drives adoption, and adoption drives more usage. It's a cycle. And what Bogdan was showing during this webinar was also iterative. So you can start with certain set of projects in one iteration and then add on top. And as you mount the snowball, as it gets bigger, the credibility of that whole thing in the organization grows, and so grows the value for the management seeing the results of the actual projects. So it is an iterative process. It's much more than the underlying technology to make that efficient and to make that happen.
Exactly. It's much more about organizational change because we know how to use the technology to introduce, for example, the register of projects. We know how to connect them with source data. We know how to visualize that for management board, and we know how to build dashboards that normally steering committees or management boards require. But as I mentioned during the presentation, the data comes from working teams, and they have to follow certain procedures in order to produce this data, because they work in their systems, in their SAPs, in their applications, but they are tracking the progress in Jira, and that's the data we are visualizing.
All right. The next question, very interesting one. Tom asks, what if we already got a bunch of projects in Jira? How difficult or easy is to move them in?
Yeah, so the question is, do we have to change our ways of working, or one side of the story, and another side of the story, do we have to move sort of technically our project? So I would answer, if these projects are not team managed, then normally you don't have to do anything, because I assume that you are already working on like the basic hierarchy. There is a work package, and this work package gets decomposed into single tasks and subtasks. And what we do with this solution, we are connecting to your sources of work, which you are already tracking. So if there are a couple of teams that are working on specific projects, I assume that they already have some epics in their, we call it technical projects or spaces right now. So if they are already have spaces in which they work as a team on epics, which they decompose, we don't change that. We only link these epics to higher level hierarchies, and we are doing certain calculations to see the progress in certain portions of time.
This is super interesting because it also resonates with the follow-up question that Tom asks, where he asks, in reality, what is the way to reorganize existing projects without disrupting the teams too much? So from what you're saying, it seems like we're not really recreating those existing epics. We just link them into certain structures, so that the disruption to the existing work of the actual teams in the existing projects is minimal. Would that
Yes,
be fair?
it should be minimal, because there are actually two things that we are asking for while introducing PMO1. So the first question is your delivery output oriented? Do you name your results, your products, and they are measurable? Sometimes they should be also testable. And is your delivery organized like that? Because as you know, Epic can be anything. and you can use that for any purposes. So in order for that to be sort of compliant with portfolio management, they should be output oriented, and that's a condition number one. And condition number two is they should be time limited. So for example, if you want to have your outputs to be reported back to projects and then to portfolio level on a quarterly levels, let's say on a quarterly time level, then these delivery of these epics should not take longer than 3 months, because otherwise you won't know if the epic has been completed or not. So we would strive to do the scheduling also in sync with reporting requirements. If the requirements are the reporting needs to be more frequent, then we are looking at the cadence, let's say, of delivering outputs, these outcomes I mentioned before.
Okay. Gosha asks actually a long paragraph of questions, but let me summarize that into two main threads. The first one is Gosha is interested to understand what do we really mean by forecasting. Is it more based on the estimation provided by the teams, or do we also take into account historical data like cycle time and work in progress?
So in this specific model, we are focusing more on estimated efforts measures. So it's because that's what generally happens. Of course, it's interesting to know the velocity, to know the historical velocity, but then the teams and generally the organization needs to be very agile oriented, and these measures are important for them. But the clients we work with, and that's why I spoke about this differentiation between the languages. The language of those who are managing portfolios and management boards are much more about results, outputs, benefits, and due dates. That's why they are not usually so much interested in velocity, etc. They are interested in budgets, estimated effort, and dates and due dates, by when will it be finished. That's why our forecasting is also more focused primarily on will it be possible to be delivered, because do we have enough capacity on the team level? And we will know that if we will have these estimated effort sort of bookings for the future. That's why there are sort of tricks around that. How can I book my people for the future if I don't know the scope yet? So there are ways to get around that and still have some visibility into the future, although I don't have a decomposed project scope yet.
And the next part of the question actually reveals a little bit of a reason why it is asked, I believe. Gosha asks, how does it differ from other widgets tools in Jira that are already existing, like Stonic Byte or Actionable Agile? I'll take the first part and then I hand it over to you. We're talking here about organizational project and portfolio management. It is much more than just development projects. You can have marketing projects, you can have legal projects, you can have multiple initiatives across the board, like sales organization projects, which are there, where assessing the work in progress and the past velocity of the team is difficult, because this project does not sit solely on the individual throughput. It has several dependencies across the organization, which is why this type of estimation that Bogdan mentioned is much more accurate, because generally across the enterprise, it's difficult to look at the projects just based on the historical data. They're too diverse. And on top of that, answering that question, as hopefully, as you noticed on the way, implementing project and portfolio management across the whole organization is a deeper process than just tooling related to access the data. It's very often you will face the situation that there's no data, and you need to make sure that the process is in place to have a data in place to be able to forecast reliably on top of that. So it is far more than yet another plugin that you could put on Jira. It is an initiative to make sure that you have a proper sponsorship and alignment, and and those projects are really logged, then measured, then managed on top of that. I'm not sure if that's precise enough. Bogdan, do you want to complement that answer?
Yeah, just a little bit that we work on certain levels of organization, and when we are introducing PPM, we work with the top level of the organization, and their view is on a whole portfolio, and we are talking about 150 projects, 180, 200. And first of all, we have to sort of standardize types of projects, strategic projects, innovative projects, operational, internal. So we have to work with teams to identify what types of projects there are, and then ways of working in each of these projects. What is a work package? What is the project result? What is a task? Do we have many tasks or types of tasks? Do they have different workflows or similar workflows? And all that needs to scale up, because otherwise we won't have these aggregated data. So the real challenge is to standardize ways of working across many departments and single teams, working on various types, as you mentioned. That can be a legal team, that can be a marketing team, logistics team, and production or whatever in manufacturing. And they have to work in certain way in order to be able to report about their projects upwards. And that's the challenge, to standardize that.
Next question goes a bit deeper into details. Kamil asks, I'm in Jira DC currently. I do have only PMO managed projects with shared workflow, but we do have epics used also in between teams. How would it work with your solution? And then as the next one, where are the items stored? Are they a separate project with tickets with some attributes, or are they some visual items that are not to be searched by Jira issue search?
Well, so that's going a little bit deeper, but what I can quickly answer, taking into account the time, is that the architecture of projects feed into what is one of the decisions we need to make at the beginning of the implementation. As you saw, when we work with small companies with 40, 50 projects, the architecture information flow is much different than we work with a portfolio of 200 projects from, let's say, 15 departments or 10 departments in different geographies. So it really all, the famous answer is it depends. Generally, we decide what is the architecture of spaces in order to make things manageable, also from the permission management point of view, and linking strategy, what objects from which types of spaces link with which. So that can be a complex thing to answer. Actually, it really depends on the context of a certain company.
And we can certainly go deeper into specific methods fitting your environment on a follow-up meeting. There is more of a conclusion than the question coming from Simon, who says, so this means PMO1 is more about showing how we use the technology and not the add-on by itself. That's very correct. It's by a process, an accelerator. We mean a technology-supported implementation. So it is more about agreeing on how to use technology across the board to make sure you have even visibility with multiple departments, showing meaningful data to roll it up, supported by Accelerator, which means certain modules and way of implementation that we already tested across different types of organizations, so that we're not learning to do this on your organization. You get the surefire way to roll it up. But the prerequisite to that is agreeing the structure and the need for the organization to report projects. It's not a technological project by any means. It is an implementation of PMO across the organization, which is also linking back to the previous question, can this be done on the team level? Technically, it can be done on a team level, but it does not give you the benefit. the benefit of the properly implemented PMO happens when you have it at the scale of the whole organization. We are at the top of the hour, but I'll keep responding to the questions. We'll keep responding to the questions for now because this session will be recorded and we'll share the recording. So hopefully you'll find that useful. And here the question that happens a couple times: does this solution require time logging in Jira?
Actually, yes, that's the work logs are these numbers are about execution. So when you have this field time tracking, in time tracking, you actually log your work, and based on that, you have the execution. But there is a simpler version of that, because some teams decide that they will sort of translate work logs into execution level. So let's say if you have a status in progress, it can mean 50% is executed because it went already through statuses like initial approval and then to do. So it means that the effort required to before earlier is enough to make it 50%. So it can be either numbers, estimated effort versus actual effort, or like this with statuses.
Okay. There's next question coming from Michał related to performance. Michał doubts that tempo structure performance is adequate when you have multiple layers of the tickets, goals, portfolios, programs, projects, phases, deliverables, and tasks. Can you comment on your experiences around the performance of tempo in PMO application in the larger setup?
So I will have to answer that honestly, but politically correct. I personally haven't had any issues with performance, but as you know, with the cloud, you don't have much influence on sort of infrastructure available to you. So yes, sometimes it happens that there are problems with showing up the data, but it's not like once you have 100,000 issues or work items, it will be like this. It may happen or may not happen. That's why with a lot of number of work items, we go into the direction of architecture of structures. So for example, we could divide this amount of data by departments, by geographies, by reasons the data should be displayed. Yes, it's less sort of comfortable than having one structure, because then you need to have a kind of in Confluence you need to have a page explaining which structure contains what. But in this way you can avoid the performance problems with JQL as initiating source of data.
Perfect. We are really overwhelmed by your questions. So despite people checking out, we will keep answering them and we'll share the recording after. The next comes from Betty. Betty connects to us from USA, Philadelphia, and she asks, how does PMO handle DevOps of multiple projects that have different quality gates?
Yes, so I mentioned that we can have different types of projects, and once you have different type of project, it is a different work item type. And as you know, with different work item types, you can have different workflows. And on the recording, you could notice that I associate certain statuses with phases. And in this way, you can have different phases for different types of projects. So when you supplement it with your PMO governance policy to sort of agree which type of project follows which phases, having which gates, in this way your technology will follow your governance policies.
There are several questions in those grouped areas. I tend to compress them into. So forgive me for not answering each and every question. There are some of them which are very similar. I try to compress them into one. Next one is around Emain. I hope I'm spelling your name right. Is it possible to start now in Jira DC in preparation for migration to cloud in a few years?
Well, honestly, we are now we've been focusing with this solution mainly on the cloud, but the concept is there. So technically speaking, we can recreate the whole configuration and the logic behind it, workflows, custom fields, etc. We can recreate it on the DC. Just keep in mind that this will be something to be sort of converted or migrated to the cloud as the rest of your configuration. But technically speaking, it's much more about the logic flow and synchronization with your policies and procedures, or PMO governance policies and procedures, than technology. Yes, on DC and on cloud, is it possible? Because the plugins that we are using are available for those for those two. Yes, for those two instance types.
Fantastic. So it seems that we depleted the pool of questions here. Thank you again for your participation. The amount of questions shows that the topic is really relevant and interesting. If you feel you'd like to go deeper, we're welcome you to respond to the summary email you're going to get after the webinar. Just drop us a couple lines and we'll continue that conversation in private with you. Thank you very much for joining us for this webinar, and happy Friday.
Okay, thank you very much.